Hello everybody and welcome. I'm Andrei and today I'm here in my studio to show you something very interesting. Today I'm gonna make music using just this mixer and nothing else. But how? Well, that's what we are here for. We're gonna use the outputs and the inputs to generate feedbacks that can be used as sound sources for many different purposes. But first of all, a little disclaimer. First, be very careful with the volumes. Since no input technique are based on the use of feedback, usually the sounds can be very loud or they can change drastically in a split of a second. Don't connect your no input mixer directly to your speakers or your headphones and earphones because it can damage your ears. My suggestion is to use different levels of gain staging. For example, for today's demonstration, the setup is based on a no input mixer, then there is a mixer and then there is an audio interface. So I can control the master volume of my output sounds. Second, avoid using the phantom power. Every mixer has a button to activate or deactivate the phantom power in the circuit. Be sure to have it turned off because it's a voltage that can ruin the preamps of your mixer if fed back. For the rest, it's very difficult to broke anything using no input techniques. I played no input mixer for the last 10 years and I've never broke anything. Third, if you are in the beginning of your experimentation with no input mixer and you are scared to broke something, even if it's close to impossible, use an old mixer, a second-hand one, a broken mixer, something that you don't care too much about, and experiment with it. No input techniques can be applied on many different types of electronic devices and electroacoustic instruments in general, because the principle of the feedback can be created in many different ways. Today we are gonna focus on the mixer because it's probably the most versatile and also the most interesting for many reasons. So the first step to generate a feedback loop inside of the mixer is to connect one of the outputs. For example, I'm connecting the auxiliary outputs number 1, the red cable, with channel number 1. Now we are going to feedback the sound from the auxiliary output number 1 into channel number 1. So we are gonna turn on the volume of the aux send number 1 at the maximum level. We're gonna turn on the auxiliary send from channel 1. And then we are gonna turn on also all the way up the gain of channel 1 to generate the feedback loop. As you can see here, the light is blinking because it's clipping. Now we are gonna hear the first feedback. Let's turn up a little bit the volume on the main output. And then let's turn up the volume on channel number 1. As you can hear, there is a sound. This is a percussive sound, very rhythmical. But what happens if we, for example, twist one of the EQ knobs? Let's turn a little bit the mid one. Ooh, it changed. Let's turn the low one. Changed again. Maybe we can also press a button and use the low cut filter under the 75 Hz that this mixer has on the first 4 channels. That was a feedback generated inside of the circuit of the mixer, and that we can manipulate using the interface of our instrument. Every fader, every knob, every button can change the sound and shape it in different forms, from high-pitched tones to rhythmical type of sounds. But this is just the beginning, obviously. We can create many feedback loops, because in a mixer we have a lot of outputs and a lot of inputs. So we are going to connect the second auxiliary channel in this mixer with this yellow cable to the second channel here of the mixer. Then we proceed to generate the second feedback, so we will turn up the volume of the second aux sense, sending the channel number 2 to the second auxiliary output, and then turn up gain. It's still clipping because it's red here, so we can listen to it. Ooh, it doesn't do anything. That's also one of the interesting things about no input techniques, that they are basically unpredictable. There are few things that you can reproduce, obviously, but of course there are also some surprises. So yeah, here we generated a second feedback, but we cannot hear it. So what can we do, for example? We can turn on the first channel and feed the second feedback inside of the first one. Ooh, it started to modulate it. And then if we change some parameters of the second feedback, we can shape the sound of the first one. Also, using the faders is a good idea. It can change the sounds as well. Now, what if we add more and more feedback inside of this mixer, connecting other outputs to other inputs? For example, we have some alternative outputs in this model of mixer, so we connect them to the channel number 3 and number 4. Then we send the signal to the alternative output. We turn up the volume. And we will see what happens. Okay, here we have 2 different feedbacks combined together, and we can, cross manipulate each other. Then we can add the first feedback that we created. And that was an example of a complex patch with the mixer. Of course, you can add more complexity if you want to experiment with different type of things. For example, you can add effects in the feedback chain, and now I'm gonna add a couple of these to see what changes in the sound and how we can shape it with different type of external devices to manipulate the feedback. Let's see what happens. So yeah, everything can change with the effects in the feedback chain. But of course you can add effects also after the feedback chain. So for example, now I'm gonna add a filter and a reverb to give it more space and transform the harsh sound into something different. As you can hear, you can create a lot of very, very harsh sounds, but also some very, very mellow drones and tones. So yeah, it's up to you to experiment and explore this technique, add your effects or create your own setup and patch, like in a modular synthesizer system. Of course, the no-input technique can be used also with other type of electronic devices, like for example pedals. You can create a feedback loop inside of a pedal chain. It also digitally. For example, I made this VCV rack patch. In this case, my friend Francesco is playing with the transducer and contact microphone attached to a solid surface and make them feedback, like when you put a microphone in front of a speaker. In this case, the solid object is where the sound propagates. So yeah, there are many different reasons why no-input techniques and using no-input mixers is super interesting. If you are a live musician and you are more into the performance side of music, it's a very interesting instrument to play with because you can use it in different situations. For example, I played it for the last 5 years, 6 years in my solo project and with other bands. But of course, if you're not a live musician and you are more into the production side of music, you can sample everything. You can create your own patches with no input mixers and pedals and effects, and then you can sample everything and use it in your productions. All my last albums are made with no input mixers, and yeah, the possibilities are really countless. The limit is the sky in a certain way. It's up to you to, find something interesting and surprising and use it in your own production. but there is also an ethical reason why I decided to work with no input mixing techniques and specifically with no input mixers. I decided to use only second-hand or mixer that were thrown away, or someone has a mixer in the cellar full of dust and rusty because it's old and no one uses it. So yeah, the idea of taking something that is meaningless and basically trash for someone and giving it a new life and using it to create something new and with a new meaning, it's for me it's something very, very important, because every mixer has its own history, its own background and all the imperfections, all the things that are not working, the channels with the dust are part of the sound of the mixer in itself. There is also, I think, this romantic probably vision of a mixer as a unique instrument. It's not something that you can buy. It has its own story, and I found this thing very fascinating. At the same time, there is also a very anti-consumeristic, in my opinion, approach to music. You don't need to spend a lot of money to create electronic music and to make sounds. You have to be able to do it with whatever you have under your hands. So yeah, let's just check if someone is throwing away an old mixer from your church or your school or the gym, whatever, and use it. Try to create something new with it. That's for me, that's something really, 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 really important on an ethical level. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this basics information about no input techniques. Of course, there is a whole world in front of you if you want to explore the sounds that you can generate with electronic devices and electroacoustic systems. But yeah, I hope this was useful and inspiring, and it has something interesting for you also on a conceptual level and on a practical one. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. See you very soon somewhere out there. Bye!